It's going. Hi, and welcome to Voices from the Middle. We're starting a new series that we hope to span the entire year on community. I'm Debbie. I'm a storyteller, advocate, and curious soul. I want to start off with a few quotes to kind of get us into what community is. I never say his name right, de Tocqueville admired the individualism of Americans. However, he warned that it must be balanced. Without balance, he warned, it will decay to fragmentation of American society and the isolation of its citizens. This is from his book, Democracy in America. Of course, this is where we are as a nation. M. Scott Peck opens his book, A Different Drum, Community and Making Peace, with these words: in and through community lies the salvation of the world. We have lost community in our country. We are so divisive that we stay clustered with only those people who are exactly like us. But a true community is a group of people who choose to support and uplift and grow with one another through shared purpose, trust, and connection. It does not destroy our individualism. It does, however, allow each of us to embrace our individualism and be who we are. A true community is more than just a group of people living or working in the same place. It's a network of relationships built on mutual care, shared purpose, and a sense of belonging. At its core, a true community has a few defining qualities. Mutual support. People who look out for one another, not out of obligation, but out of genuine concern. Shared values or purpose. Members are connected by something deeper, beliefs, goals, or experiences that give the group meaning. Trust and safety, and I think this is one of the most important characteristics of a true community. Individuals feel safe to express themselves, make mistakes, be who they are, be vulnerable, and be able to trust that the other members will still embrace them. Reciprocity. Everyone contributes in their own way and everyone benefits. Inclusivity. Differences are welcomed, not erased. Diversity strengthens the whole. And collective responsibility. Members feel responsible for the well-being of the group and the spaces they share. In short, a true community is a group of people who choose to support, uplift, and grow with one another through shared purpose, trust, and connection. That's what we're going to be exploring over the next several months. Hey, Dawn.
Well, this is, as you figured out by now, Dawn Allen and Debbie Burkhart with Voices from the Middle. And we made a choice to do community, and now it seems almost prescient that we have done that. We are seeing communities being destroyed or the effort being made to destroy. But Americans are more resilient than that. They're coming out of their homes. They're coming out of their places of employment. And they're fighting back. So if we can build community back in all of its strength and glory, which is our differences, I think we'll be able to fight off the fascist movements of this particular administration. There are no promises, but there is one guarantee. If we stand by and do nothing, if we stand by and simply watch, we will see people around us suffer. And that is really not the American way. So, I have gotten a first-hand seat, front row seat, to a community that is suffering. I have been busy since 2012 as a caregiver, first with my father and then with my mother. Now, the bright idea of someone back in the day was to put these people, once they could no longer care for themselves in their home, into these care communities. I can tell you with fair certainty, after having experienced 4 of them, their care has nothing to do with it. It is shameful and it is maddening for the family members, but it is demoralizing for our elderly. The system is one of only many broken spigots in our healthcare system. But if we focus on rebuilding our communities one at a time, they will benefit, because one of the things that's going to be necessary is for us to step in and demand through our states that our nursing homes be cleaned up. And I don't literally mean that. I mean, people that work in them need to speak the language that the elderly that are there understand. They need to care what's happening to their elderly. And if they're on their phone 24/7, they're not caring. So my goal is that as individuals, we have no power. But in our communities, we can make big change. But one person has to stand up and say, let's get together Tuesday night at my house and let's talk about how we defend our neighborhood. And that is my invitation to all of you. Whether you think ICE will ever come to your neighborhood or not, I don't. We still need to be part of the solution. I knew one of my neighbors, and they're both in a nursing home now. Then I got to know one more of my neighbors. That's it. And my neighborhood has probably 30 homes. When I was a kid growing up, we knew every single neighbor. And across from our house were duplexes where there was a revolving door, yet I still knew the neighbors well enough to go over and have dinner with them. We need that again. We need to know what the threats are to the people around us, because currently our government is refusing to do that. So what we have talked about, Debbie and I, is we looked at some of the things media has done with community over the years. And the death of Rob Reiner and his wife brought up a big one for me, and that is Norman Lear. The man was brilliant and ahead of his time. The thing that always got me about Norman was that he could make us look at our flaws, see the humor in them, while also acknowledging that's got to change. All in the Family was a primary example. Loved the show. Hated all of these things that I saw on this show, but which I saw in my white neighborhood. Right? Younger generations, like my kids' age, Friends was the big thing. There was another generation that Cheers, where everybody knows your name, right? And even younger generation, the Parks and Rec, right? That was a big show. Our media follows what's happening in the communities. In the past, a lot of times they were what drove, the communities and what was happening in the communities. But what has happened around our world with all of the compartmentalization and the separation and the constant fear and anxiety, everyone has began to go into holes and basically shut the world out because that's safe. Like the mom said in the video, I have a baby to protect, right? So media may need our help. We need to give them a reminder of, you're supposed to lead this bandwagon. Where are the shows about family today? Debbie, are there any?
I was just thinking, and not that I keep up with anyway. I'm trying to think real quick. I don't really see that. I see different TV shows that are dramas and have a close-knit family, but that's not the same thing as community. I think the thing that stands out about Friends, and I think everybody's familiar with Friends, is this group of people who care about each other, uplift each other, they know each other, they're all different, and it doesn't matter. So that's a pretty good example of community. If somebody's in trouble, they're all there to help. Even if they get mad at somebody for a brief period of time, they're still there for that person. That is, I think, probably one of the best representations on TV of community.
Well, and one of the things about Friends that always struck me was these people became so cohesive as a unit that you could have considered them family. They were just that supportive, right? And so when we learn to be open to our differences, we only benefit. We are never harmed from learning our differences, ever. Everything is about education. Everything is about learning. Jesus is the consummate teacher. And what did Jesus ask of us? But to feed my sheep. Folks, that's not literal. Well, sometimes it is when you're talking about the homeless. He wants you to care for each other. It's your job. He can't do everything. He put us here as a support system for each other. And if we don't know the man across the street's name, and we don't know his comings and goings, and finally someone in the family from the coast calls and says, I think my Uncle Rich might be dead. And he had an entire network of neighbors who didn't know. We are failing each other when things like that happen. So what we're going to do each month of 2026, this is going to be a focus for us because there are different kinds of communities. I think the most of us think automatically of neighborhoods, sometimes church, right? But in our society today, we're so much more diverse. So in February, we will be looking at communities that are religion or faith-based. I grew up in the church, and we did the potluck dinners and the Wednesday night church group and the Sunday night youth group and all those things that you do as a community within a faith-based organization. And so February, those of you who had this experience as well can talk about both the good and the bad of that particular community. Then in March, we're going to look at place. So those are going to be physical communities. That's when we'll talk about even more about our neighborhoods, right? The
And the
workplace. Forts for those who are in the military. Everybody who lives on base, that's a community, right? And the women, married women, are going to support each other if they have men that have gone overseas. Same way with the men who, if they have women that have gone overseas, because it happens both ways in our world today. So those physical communities may not be family, but when something happens like happened with Renee Good, we are all family because we are all human beings. Then in April, we will discuss interest-based groups. I think that's kind of self-explanatory, but like Debbie and I belong to writers groups. A lot of people I know belong to book clubs. Debbie's a quilter. We all have interests that we follow. My aunt was a big ham radio person back in the day. So what are our communities that are based on our interests, and how do we make sure they remain healthy in times like we're living in today? June, do you want to talk about the communities of need that we're going to talk about in June?
Communities of need would be like parents of children with cancer who support each other and perhaps fundraise together. And remember, a community is more than just people getting together, but they start out that way, and they form bonds and uplift each other, support each other, accept them, that sort of thing. I'm going to share an experience, an ongoing experience that I have with community. Back in 1996, I had teenagers, and my kids were great. I love the teenage years, but they come with some issues. And so I got together with a couple of friends and said, I'd like to meet once a week and just, offer support for each other, because this is a hard time for me and I could really use it. And they agreed. And eventually our group grew to about 6 or 7 people. We went through a lot together, and we shared intimate details of our lives that we wouldn't share with just anyone. And those intimate details were guarded. That was not spoken of to anyone outside the group. Now, there were some things that were obviously good news and things to share with our husbands and families. But we went through some hard things. We had a member whose mother died of a heart attack, and we had a member whose sister, who was only in her 30s, died. We went through a divorce with one of our members. We went through unemployment. So pretty much anything that could happen in your life that you would need support for happened within this group. Now, as I said, it started in 1996, and we all lived in the same town. Nobody lives in that. Only one member still lives there. And when it kind of simultaneously started around the time of COVID, and we started Zooming. We have a member who lives in Illinois, one in Ohio, one in Mississippi. We still have 3 in Texas, but different places. I'm in Oklahoma. And we Zoom every Sunday night at the same time we used to meet. I know if I ever need anything, I can call any one of those ladies and they will be there for me. That's community. And that's place-based. I mean, we all knew each other. We all lived in the same town. We all had kids, and we all attended the same church, and that's how we met. So that's another example of how place makes a difference.
So then we will have July, which will be communities of practice. So, groups of teachers, they're very good about community and building community. In the first place, they have a common enemy, the people above them. Also, at times, parents. People who work in technology, man, they got a whole language to themselves, right? So communities of practice can be very important. It's how we continue to grow our skills. It's how we continue to learn to work together because we have this shared identity, as someone who is developing games or whatever. Okay. Then we'll have, also included in that group would be unions, because that was huge for my father. And it continues to be huge today, because unions, if they're working the way they should, keep the workers safe from the uber rich. As we all know, that has not been happening. Amazing how corrupt everything can get. Okay, then in August, we'll talk about something. I bet 85 to 90% of people out there belong to at least one of these, an online community, right? We all have a community of people that we talk to on Facebook, or that we talk to on TikTok, or perform for on TikTok, or, writers. I was just at a writers group last night for, we had a tech guy come and try to explain computers to, a lot of us old writers that have not got the experience yet with all the way computers change, which is rapid fire. And so August will be a big one, I think, because it's the one that we're going to share the most commonalities with. Then September is one that Debbie and I are very, very familiar with, and that is caregivers. Anyone who belongs in this group, I think it's fair to say, doesn't want to. It's a bit like other groups where there's more trauma and pain than there is anything else. And nobody ever wants to belong to one of those groups. But this is not a choice. It's it's something that we either rise to the occasion and accept, or someone else suffers. And community is about making sure no one suffers. No one. October, that will definitely be my favorite month. 1, Halloween. 2, we're going to talk about activism. We're going to talk about, did your neighborhood get together and come up with a signal like the whistle for getting yourselves together if any fascist shows up and tries to bully people? That'll be fun. That'll be a good discussion. Now, I'm going to let Debbie talk about this. One of the things we're going to have to address about all our communities is, how do we protect our communities, keep them safe from outside interference, while also retaining a healthy community? Because there is a lot of toxic bullshit out there. So I'm going to let her tackle that discussion for November.
It's easy for a tight-knit group in community to become exclusive. Communities are inclusive. It should not limit who enters into the community. It doesn't matter what background. Everybody in that community continues to be an individual. You don't meld into one way of thought. So it's easy for a community, without realizing, become a clique. That's not what we want. Toxic communities can also be, it can be anything. I'm going to use, because it's prevalent right now, I'm going to use the church as an example. In some churches, if you disagree with what's going on, if you have a different idea of what's going on, you become an outcast. That's not community. Community is not there to gossip. It is there to uplift and support people. But there are communities, I call them toxic communities. And we're going to spend some time in November discussing how those things start, perhaps ways we can heal those communities, and when the communities just need to depart and join a different community. It's important to remember diversity and individualism is important in community. It should be a safe place to be who you are, not to change to match everybody else. Now, through community, you may hear opinions and ideas that you initially didn't agree with, but they're brought up in such a way it makes you think. If in thinking you change your opinion, great. If in thinking you can't agree with that, that's okay too. It's just, you should be able to be yourself, and the community should be a safe place, a trusting place for that to happen. And that doesn't happen in a toxic community. So we're going to spend some time on that in November.
And before we get to December, I don't know how, but I missed something. May. Okay. May, we're going to talk about identity-based groups. This is very vital to our community because we are so stuck in our belief systems that we seem to think that other people, and I literally mean other people, are just too different. They don't belong. They can't be here. Well, what is to other? Because I've been the weirdo writer my entire freaking life. People don't like to have conversations with me because I like to hang out in cemeteries at night. I mean, tell me, you want to go to dinner with me when you know I hang out in cemeteries? I mean, I bonded with my son last summer up in Oregon. First place we went was to a cemetery. We spent over an hour in the cemetery until it started snowing. That was the best fun I'd had. Am I too other? Really? Because I haven't met anyone yet that was too other for me. Yeah. So I apologize for missing May. December, just like we did this year, will be a look at the entire year. And, you know, what kinds of things over the course of that year did we learn? What kinds of things over the course of that year are settled in our minds that that's something we want to work on in our communities, like identifying toxic things when they become a problem, how to help each other remain healthy. And by healthy, I'm not even talking physical, I'm talking mental. Not only do we have a crappy healthcare system, but we've got a lot of mental health issues going on. You don't live in a fascist government and not have massive mental health issues going on. So it's going to be really important in December for us to talk about the things we've learned and how we can use those going forward. So Debbie and I are so glad that you joined us for this overview of 2026. My prayer is that it ends better than it started. And I know that that's probably everybody's prayer. We will see you in February for our communities of religion and faith-based. And I'd like to put out an invitation because, you know, we'd really like to have people of every persuasion. And that includes no faith. I have an uncle who's an atheist. I think he's actually more agnostic, but you know, that's a debate you can have. The bottom line for me is I don't care what God you worship. I care whether you're a good human being or not, because that's what all the gods are really about. Be a good human being. Debbie?
I want to close my stuff with, if you want to dig deeper into community, I just want to recommend a book. Some of you are probably familiar with Scott Peck. He wrote The Road Less Traveled. He wrote People of the Lie. This is the different drum, community making, and peace. A spiritual journey towards self-acceptance, true belonging, and new hope for the world. I don't know if you can see. No, you can't. I have lots of highlighted sections. He's easy to read. He's thoughtful. He's reasonable. So if you're interested in knowing more about community building, this would be a great resource. I hope everyone has a good month. Hope we start to see some positive changes in our country. Dawn and I decided after complaining all last year about the government, we wanted to put something positive out there, something that will help us get through this. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next month.